Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to show you just a few basics when it comes to punch needle embroidery. Let's start with what I use. So I use cotton linen fabric. I really like it because it's got a tiny bit of a stretch to it, you can see, and it's really nice and soft. You know, it hasn't got any stiffness to it whatsoever really, so you can, when you're stretching it in, you can really sort of pull it and it's nice and taut. So that's what I use for fabric. I only ever use DMC embroidery thread because I honestly think it's the best. It's just absolutely gorgeous. It's got the most amazing colors and it's got this lovely shine to it. So if you punch in certain direction, you get to create really beautiful shapes because of the light that hits the gorgeous thread. Now I only also ever punch with the ultrapunch. I think it's honestly the best needle out there. I've tried the sort of cheap alternatives and it just drove me crazy. It was really horrible to punch with it. It kept sort of, the needle kept coming out or going in, and it was just an absolute nightmare. Whereas this needle is really, really good quality, hence why it's a bit more expensive. But seriously, it will last you a long time. So yeah, so I tend to punch on number 4, only because I use so much thread, and if I used anything higher than that, everything would cost a lot of money because I would use like double the amount of thread that I already use. And because I punch, I like the wrong side. It doesn't really matter how high my loops are because I just need them to basically stay in the fabric, and I find 4 is the best. I think any less than that, you're running the risk of the stitches coming out. So that's my needle, so I'm going to put it back on for so I don't forget. I use curved scissors because I find that I can really get right up to the fabric when I'm cutting the thread off. These are, I think, just viscous. And then that's my threader for my needle. Oops, sorry. And then I use just a water erasable pen because sometimes I like to draw directly on my fabric. So I don't know, do a little square. And then you can just use a little bit of water. Have I got any water here? I have, hold on. Just use a little bit of water. No, I wouldn't use your finger, but I haven't got anything else around. You can just get rid of it. It will dry and it'll be all gone. Sometimes I just run it under the water and it just completely disappears and when it dries. So yeah, so sometimes I like to draw directly on my fabric and then punch if I'm going to do it right away. The problem is sometimes when I draw on the fabric and then I leave it out in the light somewhere, it starts fading away just with light as well. So it's definitely not a permanent marker. If I want something a bit more permanent, I just use a pencil because eventually it will get covered by my stitches, so it doesn't matter that you can't really erase it. Yeah, so those are all the supplies, and obviously hoops. I use all sorts of hoops, to be honest. I think ultimately it doesn't matter because your artwork will take away from the way it looks anyway, but I do prefer the ones with the brass screw. I think this one is not particularly good looking. But anyway, for the purpose of this video, it will do. So I'm going to show you how to thread a needle. So you grab your threader. Now some people like to thread the long bit first and then they do the little hole second. But to be honest, I just like to do it all together. So I just put my finger over the big hole and then I will push my threader into the little hole all the way down. It will come out the other side. And then I get my thread and just, oops, push it through and then pull all the way out, and it, as you see, it comes out really super easy. So it just saves you an extra step. Okay, and then I just pull it out a bit so I only have a tiny bit of thread sticking out. And then to punch, you need to make sure that you're punching the big hole is in the direction you're punching in. So if you actually, sometimes basically, if you buy the needle with the 3 different tips, you have to put the needle in yourself. And what happens then is you need to make sure that your needle, the big hole, is facing the way the numbers are facing, because then you can really easily just pick up the needle and you just look at the numbers and you know they need to go in the direction you're punching in. Otherwise it's just all, you know, I don't know, I find it that it's easier that way. So yeah, so I just punch, I like to punch toward myself because I find it the easiest. Some people like to punch away from themselves, or they punch in all sorts of directions, just constantly turning the needle around, but I just find my hand is the steadiest when it's towards me. So let's just move these scissors out of the way and get a bit more fabric, not fabric, thread. There we go. Right, so to start punching, oops, you push the needle all the way into the fabric, and then on the other side you grab the thread and you pull it out so it's sticking out. And what you can also do is just go to the end of the needle and pull the thread out so you're not wasting it. And then as you've got the needle in, you bring it up to the surface, graze the fabric and push back in, all the way in, up to the surface, push back in, graze, push, graze, push. And you'll be able to see, if I can do it awkwardly, you can see what it does on the other side. Creates little loops. Okay, so just punch, punch, and then the next row you just turn your needle around and go in the middle of the previous punch, and that way you've got really beautiful uniform stitches. If you pull the needle up too high, then punch in, you're going to get a little loop. But what you can do easily is just pull the needle out, pull stitches back, and then you just bring the needle back to the surface, to your next hole, as if you've just come out of the fabric, then you push back in. So can you see my numbers are facing the direction that I'm trying to punch in? Because if I did this, it would just not work, and it would just break my thread. Okay, so always punch, sorry, always face the numbers in the direction that you're punching in. Okay, now to finish up, you bring the needle out, you put your finger to hold the thread in, you pull, and then you get your scissors and just cut as close to the fabric and the thread as possible. And then what I like to do is turn the scissors around and just push the little fuzzy bit in. There you go. And I think, oh, another thing, let's just say that you've made your triangle and you want to replace the color, you don't like it, you want to pull it out. So what you can do is you can just lift up the stitches and just simply pull them out. However, if you've already punched something else next to it and it's surrounded by different threads, I recommend that you unravel the thread from where you finished. So I finished in the middle, and this is the best way to pull it out really, really neatly, and everything comes out beautifully. Whereas if I try to do this, you can see that is going to be a problem, because it most likely have caught the other stitches next to it, and it will pull them out now. Whereas if I do it from the middle, look, gently, oh actually, let's see. Oh, this one little pesky thread got stuck. But never mind. If you just break it down, you can pull it out easily. But my point is that it didn't pull out any of these stitches. And if you, especially if you're doing another square here and you want to pull that out, you're going to run into an issue with every little thread, because every little stitch rather, because they're all so close together, and some of them are actually caught, intertwined together. So yeah, so if you're unraveling, it's best to do it from where you finished, and that way you're going to ensure that you're going to unravel it really easily and beautifully. And also it means that the thread is actually in a really good condition, so you can just reuse it, you know, because this thread is expensive and I absolutely hate waste. So I just love it when I can pull it out and just reuse it. You might want to cut off like a tiny bit at the end or something when where it's all, you know, split and fuzzy. But other than that, you've got most of your thread that you can just reuse again. Right, so I think I've covered all the basics. And if I think of anything else, I'll just let you guys know, or redo the video, or, you know, add to it, or make another video or whatever. I'll definitely let you know. All right, thank you.